The envelope arrived on a golden afternoon, the kind that smells faintly of nostalgia and rain-soaked memories. It was addressed in elegant cursive, the kind no one writes with anymore. Each letter carefully curved, deliberate, as though time itself had slowed to let the writer linger. My wife, Hazina, found it first, perched on the edge of our kitchen counter, sunlight glinting off her wedding ring. "Oh, it's from my old high school," she said, her voice lilting with surprise. "A reunion. 20 years already." Her smile, soft, wistful, and just a touch too bright, made something stir in me. I watched her fingers trace the embossed seal, watched her eyes cloud with recollection. For a moment, she wasn't my wife, standing barefoot in our kitchen. She was a girl again, young and restless, dreaming of forever before she knew what forever demanded. That evening, she read the invitation aloud, as though it were a love letter from her past. Dinner and dancing, old friends, laughter, memories rekindled. Each word seemed to lift her higher, carry her somewhere I could not follow. I laughed it off, pretended it was nothing, but inside, I felt a quiet unease, an ache born not of jealousy, but a faint realization that time had carved more distance between us than miles ever could. When she finally asked, "Will you come with me?" I hesitated just long enough for her to notice, and in that fleeting pause, something fragile shifted between us, a reminder that even the strongest bonds can tremble when the past comes calling. The night air was crisp as we drove toward the venue, the headlights slicing to the gentle mist that hovered over the streets like a soft veil. Hazina chattered softly beside me, recounting names and faces she half remembered, her excitement bubbling over like champagne fizzing in a glass. I smiled, listening, but the tight knot of anticipation in my chest refused to loosen. There was something both exhilarating and dangerous about stepping back into a world that had once belonged to her alone. The hall shimmered as we entered, adorned with twinkling lights and banners that read, "Welcome back, class of 2005. The scent of nostalgia hit us immediately. Polished floors, floral arrangements, faint perfume from long-lost acquaintances. People laugh with the kind of easy familiarity that comes only when time has softened the edges of old rivalries and forgotten grievances. Hazina's face lit up the moment she spotted someone across the room, a former classmate she hadn't seen in decades. She crossed the hall in long, eager strides, waving and calling out names, her laughter ringing through the air like music. For a fleeting moment, I felt invisible, an intruder in her memory, watching a version of the woman I loved dance with shadows of her past. Then she turned to me, her hand slipping into mine, grounding me in the present. "Come on," she whispered. "Let's say hello." And so we did, greeting old friends whose faces had transformed with time, who now wore the gentle armor of middle age, a laugh line here, a graying hair there, but eyes still sparkling with the echoes of youth. It was all so vivid, so alive, and yet there was a strange dissonance. Hazina moved from group to group with the ease of someone who belonged entirely to this world, a world I had never inhabited. I tried to join in, tried to laugh and remember, but I felt an unsettling distance, as if the past and the present were colliding around me. And then it happened. A moment so small yet so powerful that I almost missed it. Hazina laughed at a joke, turned, and for a brief second her eyes went wide, a flicker of confusion passing over her expression. She had forgotten, even for a heartbeat, that she was not that girl anymore, that she was married, here with me. And I realized in that fleeting second that the night would not just be a reunion of friends, but a reunion of memories I had long kept at bay. As Hazina drifted from one familiar face to another, I felt my mind wander down corridors of memory I hadn't visited in years. The laughter and music around us blurred, replaced by snapshots of quiet evenings at home, conversations left unfinished, and words that had once cut deeper than I cared to admit. It wasn't anger I felt. It was a gentle, persistent ache, the kind that whispers when you try to convince yourself that everything is fine. I remember the night she had come home late from work, brushing past me with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. We had sat in the kitchen, the hum of the refrigerator loud in the silence between us, and I had asked, "Is everything okay?" She had nodded, said, "Of course," and yet the tension in her shoulders betrayed her words. That was the first time I realized that love alone wasn't enough to bridge the growing distance between us. Another memory surfaced. The argument over something trivial, a misplaced bill, a forgotten anniversary. The words had piled up like autumn leaves in the corners of our home, colorful and beautiful in their own way, but destined to rot if ignored. I could still hear her voice, calm yet tinged with frustration, explaining why she felt unseen, why the weight of our responsibilities had made her forget who she had once been. At the reunion, those memories returned with an almost cruel clarity. I saw her laughing carefree, as if time had rolled back 2 decades, and I realized how much of our shared life had been overshadowed by routines, compromises, and unspoken disappointments. The girl I married had grown into a woman who sometimes seemed to forget herself, to forget us, until reminded by the world, or in this case, by me. I swallowed hard, feeling the quiet despair of a love tested by years and distractions. Yet, amid the ache, there was also a stubborn ember of hope. Perhaps this night, chaotic and emotional as it was, could serve as a mirror, a chance to remember what had been lost, and maybe what could still be reclaimed. But first, Hazina had to remember who she was in the present, not just who she had been. The dining hall was alive with chatter, clinking glasses, and the low hum of nostalgia. Candles flickered on each table, casting warm, golden light on faces both familiar and foreign. Hazina sat across from me, radiant in a way that made my chest tighten. The glow of youth mingled with the subtle grace of the years. She laughed easily, leaning toward old friends as if the decades had melted away. As the host called for attention, I felt a tightening in my stomach. It was time for the dinner toast, the moment everyone would raise their glasses, reminisce, and perhaps reveal truths best left unspoken. Hazina's eyes met mine, sparkling with anticipation, unaware of the storm I already sensed brewing in her laughter. The host began, his voice rich with warmth and nostalgia. Stories were shared, childhood pranks, high school heartbreaks, and dreams that had once seemed infinite. I watched Hazina's face shift subtly with each memory, the lines of time disappearing until she seemed a girl again. She laughed at a joke about the old football team, a laugh so unguarded that my pulse quickened. Then it happened. A former classmate raised his glass and, with playful mischief, recounted a story of a young woman who had fallen for every charming boy in school, never knowing which one she would marry. Hazina laughed, a clear, joyous sound, but the laughter lingered a beat too long. Her eyes widened, confusion flashing across her face, as if she were trying to place herself in a story she no longer recognized. The room held its collective breath, sensing the pause, the sudden shift in energy. And in that heartbeat, I realized she had forgotten that she was married, that I was sitting right here beside her. The woman I loved, the woman I had built a life with, had momentarily slipped back into a world where I did not exist. I took a deep breath, forcing a calm I did not feel. "Hazina," I said, my voice steady but firm. "Remember, I'm right here. We're married." The words were simple, yet they carried the weight of years, of shared mornings and nights, of silent compromises and whispered promises. Her gaze flickered to me, the color draining slightly from her cheeks as recognition returned, accompanied by a wave of embarrassment and relief. She laughed nervously, squeezing my hand under the table, and murmured, "Oh, right, I." But the moment had already transformed the room. Whispers rippled through old friends, a mixture of amusement, curiosity, and concern. I felt a surge of protective urgency and quiet grief, realizing that this night was no longer just a reunion of classmates. It was a confrontation with the cracks in our marriage, a reminder that time, memory, and attention can falter in ways we never anticipate. And as the toast concluded and glasses clinked once more, I knew we had to navigate the delicate aftermath together, one honest conversation at a time. The room had settled into an uneasy hum after the toast, but the ripple of surprise and quiet gossip lingered like smoke from a candle long extinguished. Hazina sat beside me, her hand resting lightly on mine, but her fingers trembled ever so slightly. I could feel the weight of her embarrassment pressing down like a heavy fog, thick and stifling. For a fleeting moment, I wondered if the laughter and teasing of old friends might fracture the fragile connection we'd built over years of marriage. I drew in a steadying breath, aware that the moment demanded more than silent presence. It demanded acknowledgement, clarity, and a gentle but firm reminder of the life we shared, a life that, for a second, she had almost erased from memory. "Everyone," I said, my voice calm but carrying a quiet authority that comes from deep familiarity with someone you love, "I think this is a good moment to clarify something." Conversations paused, glasses frozen midair, eyes turning toward us. My pulse quickened, but I held their gaze, and then I looked at Hazina. This woman you see laughing with old friends, this amazing, radiant, unforgettable woman, is not just a memory from the past. She is my wife. We shared a life together for 15 years, and tonight she's reminded me, in the funniest way, that some memories come back slowly. A gentle laugh rippled through the table, easing some of the tension. Hazina's cheeks warmed further, a mix of shame and amusement, but I continued. It's incredible to see her reconnect with old friends, to see the young woman we all once knew. But let's not forget the woman she is now, the woman who builds a home, who nurtures love, who stands beside me every day. That woman is here tonight, present and whole, and she's part of my story as much as she was part of yours. I could feel Hazina leaning closer, her eyes shimmering with gratitude and a quiet apology. She mouthed, "I'm sorry," and I squeezed her hand, letting her know without words that there was nothing to be ashamed of. Memory can falter, even in the people we know best, and sometimes it takes a gentle nudge to bring the present rushing back. The room exhaled collectively. Old classmates smiled knowingly, some chuckling at the humor of the situation, others touched by the tenderness of the reminder. I sensed that the delicate balance of the evening had shifted. What could have become an awkward spectacle had transformed into a moment of connection, of recognition, of love asserted calmly and openly. Later, as we returned to our seats, Hazina rested her head against my shoulder, whispering softly, "Thank you for reminding everyone and for reminding me, too." I kissed the top of her head, feeling both the fragility and the strength of our bond. In that quiet intimacy, I realized that marriage is a living, breathing thing. It is not just built on grand gestures or unbroken recollection, but on patience, gentle reminders, and a willingness to meet each other where memory falters. That night, amid the laughter, the flickering candlelight, and the gentle hum of nostalgia, we had faced a crack in our shared life. And instead of letting it grow, we had bridged it with truth, humor, and love. The rest of the evening passed with newfound lightness. Hazina rejoined her friends, but this time, her glances toward me carried a spark of recognition and comfort. I knew we would talk later, long into the night, about the little cracks, the fading memories, and the life we continue to build together. But for now, as glasses clinked and old stories danced through the air, I felt a quiet, unwavering certainty. Sometimes, love requires the courage to speak up, to remind, and to anchor the ones we cherish, even when they momentarily forget the life they've made with us. And in that act, fragile yet powerful, we had reclaimed the night, and perhaps a part of ourselves. The drive home was quiet, the hum of the engine the only sound breaking the heavy, contemplative silence. Outside, the city lights blurred into streaks, soft and golden against the dark sky, as if the world itself had slowed to give us a moment to breathe. Hazina sat beside me, her hand finding mine once again, this time without hesitation or tremor, and I felt the small, grounding weight of her presence. Neither of us spoke for a while, letting the echoes of the evening settle. Memories of laughter, raised glasses, and whispered jokes mingle with the more serious moments. The pause of the toast, the flicker of forgetfulness in her eyes, the gentle yet firm reminder I had offered. It was a strange mixture of amusement, tenderness, and quiet gravity, like walking a tightrope suspended between past and present. Finally, Hazina broke the silence, her voice soft, almost hesitant. "I didn't mean to forget," she said, eyes fixed on the passing streetlights. I got so caught up in seeing them again, in remembering who I was back then, I forgot who I am now, who we are. I squeezed her hand gently. "It's okay," I said. "That's what memory does sometimes. It plays tricks, but it doesn't erase what we built. Tonight reminded both of us of the life we share, even if it took a little stumble to see it clearly." She smiled, a mixture of relief and lingering embarrassment, and leaned closer, resting her head lightly against my shoulder. I felt the tension of the night ease, replaced by a quiet warmth, the unspoken acknowledgement that, despite cracks and lapses, our bond remained intact. The fleeting forgetfulness had not weakened us. It had reminded us of the care, patience, and gentle reminders required to navigate the life we had chosen together. As we drove through the empty streets, the night seemed to whisper possibilities. Moments yet to come, laughter still to be shared, memories still to be made. The reunion had ended, but its lessons lingered, subtle and persistent, like the soft hum of the engine beneath our quiet conversation. By the time we pulled into our driveway, the tension had fully melted away, replaced by a calm certainty. We stepped out together, hand in hand, ready to face tomorrow. The night had tested us in a small, unforgettable way, but it had also reminded us, unmistakably, that love is as much about anchoring each other in the present as it is about remembering the past. And tonight we had done both. The morning after the reunion dawned soft and pale, sunlight spilling through the curtains in gentle streaks that promised a fresh start. Hazina sat at the kitchen table, nursing a cup of tea, her eyes distant yet peaceful. I joined her, placing my hand over hers, and for a moment, we simply existed in the quiet comfort of shared presence. Last night's events lingered in my mind like a gentle echo, laughter mingled with confusion, whispered apologies, and a delicate reminder that even the strongest relationships can be tested by time, memory, and distractions. And yet, as I looked at Hazina, I felt a profound sense of clarity. Marriage, I realized, is not a static monument to love. It is a living, breathing thing, shaped by patience, forgiveness, and the small, conscious acts that anchor two people to each other. The reunion had revealed cracks, yes, but it had also offered a mirror, a way to see ourselves more clearly, to recognize what we had taken for granted, and to recommit to the life we had built. There was humor in the forgetfulness, tenderness in a reminder, and hope in a way we had navigated the moment together. It was a lesson that neither of us would soon forget, that love requires vigilance, attention, and the courage to speak the truths that sometimes go unspoken. Hazina glanced at me, her lips curving into a small, knowing smile. "I'm glad you reminded me," she said softly. "Not just about us, but about who I am now, who we are together." I returned her smile, feeling a quiet swell of gratitude and relief. The past would always be a part of us, the memories, the friendships, the laughter, but the present, fragile and fleeting, was what truly mattered. And in honoring the present, we could shape a future that was brighter, more attentive, more alive. That day, I realized that new beginnings are rarely dramatic or sudden. They often arrive quietly, in shared glances, in whispered words, and in the gentle acknowledgement of love's endurance. Last night's reunion had ended, but in its wake, it had left us with a renewed sense of connection, a deeper understanding of each other, and the courage to navigate life's inevitable lapses with grace and humor. As we sipped our tea in companionable silence, I knew that together we were ready for whatever came next, anchored in the present, guided by memory, and open to the infinite possibilities of a life lived side by side.